All right, well, welcome to another episode of Innovation Tech Talks presented by Omron, a leader in healthcare technology. I'm your host, Corey Noles, and we have a neat guest today, Dr. Robert Ambrose. He's the chairman of Robotics and Artificial Intelligence for Alliant Group and the former chief of software robotics and simulation at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Dr. Ambrose, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Nice to meet you, Corey. Thanks for inviting me to talk today.
Oh, thank you very much. We're glad to have you here. I guess to start out, I'd like to ask a little bit about your time with NASA. How'd you land in this field?
Well, I really enjoyed working at NASA. I was there for 21 years. Worked with just tremendous people, incredible challenges. Working at NASA's incredible privilege. I tell people it might be one of the only U.S. government agencies the rest of the world likes, and might be one of the few even Americans like. And it has something to do with the mission. NASA just has this incredible mission, and it's for all mankind, and it attracts people that resonate with that mission. And I certainly did since I was a kid. I'd always wanted to work there.
It's always been one of those final frontiers where different countries even play well together.
Oh.
Until recently, I guess.
Well, and even still, it's amazing. If there's one place that can work with the rest of the world, it's definitely NASA.
That's impressive. So during your time there, did you work on any projects that our listeners might be familiar with? I know you worked on, and I can't remember the name of it, the giant truck, the thing I saw on Ozzy and Jack's World Detour.
There you go. So that was the Chariot Rover. We called it a Chariot. We built a chassis first that was 12-wheel drive, could go in any direction, up and down, active suspension. And then we put a couple different cabins on it. And that really revolutionized the way we think about exploring the moon and Mars with people. Driving around having to wear a spacesuit is really not a lot of fun. The suit hits you in all the wrong spots. And then when you're bouncing in a rover, it's really harsh. And what we found was in a pressurized cabin, you could kind of pick where you're going to park, and we had good windows, and we could do a lot of science through the windows. And then we had things called suit ports, which allowed the people to go in and out of the cabin without having to depressurize the cabin like they did Apollo. And that meant that the suits, when you come back in, they kind of hang on the outside of the pressure vessel, and you climb in and out of them through hatches. And that was great because the suits were really covered in lunar regolith in Apollo, and when they would bring them into the cabin and then repressurize, that dust got everywhere, and it was hard on the people and the equipment. So this was a really good approach, and we now see in like all the cartoons, showing animations of how we're going to do it on the moon and Mars. You see the derivatives of our Chariot rover, and in the movie, the book and the movie, The Martian, those rovers were based on the two that we built, and it was great to see that picked up as a new approach to exploring. And nothing says you own a planet like you're RVing around it off road at will. That really says you own it. So,
climbing over rocks.
Yeah. So we've got a small version of that rover that's planned to go. It's going to go to the moon Thanksgiving 23, which in aerospace terms is like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's a quick ride to the moon. It'll be there around Christmas of 23, and that's a little rover called Viper. It has it's kind of a miniature version of the Chariot kinematics with active suspension and steer in any direction, kind of steering capabilities. And its job is to ground truth the orbital data that we have that says there's a lot of hydrogen at the South Pole. Based on orbital data, we're going to ground truth it with some instruments and see exactly how much there is. And it's that's probably water ice trapped in the soil at the South Pole. And if we can ground truth in a couple different areas and get a good correlation between what we found on the ground with orbital data, then we'll know exactly how much water is everywhere across the lunar surface where we've got good data now. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
Viper. You're going to hear a lot about that machine in the future. We built a couple other robots. Robonaut 1 was a real breakthrough system. NASA, I developed that with DARPA, and it's now in the Smithsonian. So if you go to the Smithsonian Aerospace Museum on the Mall, go visit Robonaut. It's in the NASA room, in the
Oh,
Beyond
wow.
Earth room. And then the Robonaut 2 system we developed in a partnership with General Motors, and it went to the International Space Station. And that was all about making a robot safe to work around people.
Oh,
So, at the Johnson Space Center, we're not trying to replace people. Our astronauts are our friends. We're just trying to build systems to help them do their jobs safely. And so GM had that same idea that on an assembly line, there were jobs that were hurting people. So the robot should do those jobs, but it needs to do it really safely right next to a person. So it's all about them, that there will be people, and we just want the robots to be able to work with them side by side safely. And then the Valkyrie robot,
yeah.
first bipedal robot, also developed with the NSF and DARPA and some defense funding for doing bomb disposal. The bomb disposal job is like literally the worst job on earth,
Yeah.
and they know it. And what they want is that we don't want to replace the people doing the bomb disposal. We just want to step them back a few steps.
Yeah.
So they command the robot, and but they want to be outside the blast radius.
Yeah.
That's and so it's a terrible job, and we think the robot technology is now there to let them be able to get huge challenges, like to get between two parked cars
Yeah.
and open a car door and get something out of the back seat of a car. That robotically, that is a huge challenge. Humans are
Yeah.
just so athletic; we do it easily. And you know how close cars can be parked. Sometimes it takes a lot of athleticism to get in and out of a car.
Yeah.
And so, a
That's an
big
extra
tank,
1,000 servo motors or something, isn't it?
a big tank robot can't fit between two parked cars. So we had to come up with a different kind of robot, and that was a great project too. So those are all machines that we developed at JSC, and a bunch of others. Free flyers. We built the jet packs that the astronauts wear. Bunch of great projects, and I can't say enough about how much I enjoyed working in NASA.
Wow. That's really interesting. And now you're moving a lot in the AI world as well, I assume. And it's something I've wondered. We see AI on labels for everything you buy now. But in a lot of ways, that's not what we think of as AI. Are we at a stepping stone on the way to that point?
Yeah, and it's a path of stepping stones,
Okay.
and we're well on the path already, and a lot more to come. I don't want to overuse the metaphor, but at some point it's going to become a sidewalk, and then it'll eventually be a highway. We're in that early phase now. A bunch of fairly narrow but productive AI tools are being used in society right now, and they're narrow, in which like a vacuum robot, it only vacuums. But hey, if it has a business case, it makes you more productive. It doesn't need to do a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
If just doing that one job is enough for it to have a return on investment, then you use that tool, right? So there are a bunch of these AI applications that are fairly narrow for usually helping someone sort through more data than a human could really understand, right? And
Yeah.
try and spot something helpful that could be used by the business to make themselves more productive, or spot a problem before it becomes too big. Once the problem is huge, then of course a person can see it, because it's blown up as a big problem. Being able to spot problems early in data, what a great application for an artificial intelligence algorithm.
Yeah. And I mean, I can see that having applications in space, in business, in military, in just about everywhere.
Yeah, and so there are a bunch of these industries that are going through this adoption right now, and it's going to change them, but it's not. wholesale change because they've already been changing. And what's what's different is the rate of change.
Okay.
When if you think like hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, people farmed the same way their dad farmed, and he farmed the same way their granddad farmed. And they used the
Uh-huh.
exact same tools. And if you mastered a tool, like a single tool, you could live your whole career using that one tool. Not so today, right?
Yeah.
So today we are moving so fast that the tools are evolving quickly. So you can't think, hey, I mastered this one tool, I'm done with the rest of my life. I'm
Yeah.
never going to have to learn a new tool. You got to stay on it now because tools are evolving very quickly. The idea that you're not using the same tools that your parents used right now,
Yeah.
at the same point in their lives, and you're the next generation will be on to other things too. AI is a tool, right?
Yeah.
These are tools that can be used in business to help spot trends, to see connections, and to basically like an agent that you can send into a data set to help find something for you. Much and anyone who uses Google or buys something on Amazon, you're working with artificial intelligence. And these are just fairly narrow apps that are helpful for looking through things and finding you what you're looking for. And they aren't an artificial intelligence like you see in a sci-fi movie, where it's
Yeah.
got a personality or it talks to you or something. You're not going to have a deep conversation with
Yeah.
one of these search engines, but you don't want to, right? I mean, that's what people are for. You want these AI tools to do what they do and get you what you need. And
Yeah.
the AI algorithm is one of the sharpest tools in the modern toolkit today.
Wow. Well, we're going to take just a short break here for a quick message from our sponsors at Omron Healthcare.
Today's episode of Innovation Tech Talks is brought to you by Omron. Omron is a world leader in technology designed to solve social issues, improve lives, and build a better tomorrow. They serve a range of industries which utilize their technologies to innovate and grow factory automation, healthcare, mobility, and energy management. In the industrial automation business, Omron technology demonstrates the power of machines to unleash human potential, pursuing the ideal in automation, in which people and machines are working together in harmony. Omron provides sensing, control, safety, vision, motion, and robotics technologies for the automotive, food and beverage packaging, semiconductor, electronics, life sciences, and infrastructure industries. For over 80 years, Omron has helped industrial businesses maximize potential by solving problems with creativity. Learn more, go to automation.omron.com.
So, Dr. Ambrose, what can you tell me about the intersection of robotics and artificial intelligence?
Well, there's a big overlap. If you think of what's called a Venn diagram, like you draw two circles, one's robots and one's autonomy,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, that intersection between the two is what we started with really in robotics. All the early science fiction from like Asimov, it was all about robots that were fully autonomous or highly autonomous, and that's what people tend to think of. But the other two segments, the part of AI that's not robotics, and the part of robotics that's not AI, that's where most of the business is right now.
Okay.
So, data manipulation tools that use artificial intelligence, machine learning, that aren't embodied. I mean, they're searching through a database which barely exists in physics, right? It's a data structure. It's not a physical structure, and it's not embodied. And then, but it's very productive and used all day long in businesses today, and much more to come in that class of an AI agent that's not really embodied. And then, in the case of robotics, the vast majority of robots don't have artificial intelligence because they don't really need it for the job that they're doing today. They're doing things that are repetitive. They are typically taught using keyboards and teach pendants to do a job, tweaked till it's working well, and then they just run the robot because it's just minting money for the company, right, to do a job. And then if it's the right kind of robot, when it's done doing a job, it can be reprogrammed to do a new job. So
Oh, wow.
you don't throw it away, you repurpose it for doing different jobs. And that's called flexible automation. And it's a much more sustainable approach to putting robots in your work place where you can repurpose them. But the robot has to be designed to do that. A vacuum cleaner, it doesn't really have a lot of other functions it could do. So it's not really designed for that. But flexible automation is designed to be repurposed for lots of different jobs. And sometimes you put a different hand on the robot, or you put a different interface on it for moving material around, and you can reuse it for different jobs. But that intersection between the two is where it's an embodied artificial intelligence. So it's not just communicating with you; it can also do things.
Oh, wow.
And that's where both robotics and AI started in science fiction, and that's the highest utility in in the space. So
It's
we're
kind of
seeing
the summit.
it's the apex system. Is the artificially intelligent robotic system, and that's the apex machine. It's coming, and we're seeing a number of more general robotic systems. So instead of just doing one function, they're able to do many more, and they don't need a person to reprogram them to go do the new job. So flexible automation,
Oh, wow.
with a lot of people's help, can be switched from packing potato chips one day to folding boxes the next day, and that's a useful machine to have in your factory, right?
Yeah.
But an artificially intelligent machine doesn't need to be reprogrammed. It has the ability to learn, and maybe the way you interact with it to program it is at a higher level. So you're not necessarily writing new source code. You're showing it things, and it's learning and getting better. And then
Wow.
even as it's doing the task, it can improve. Most flexible automation, it's only, you write the program and it does exactly what you tell it to do, no matter how badly you programmed it. It does exactly what you tell it to do, and no better. And most robots that are programmed that way, they're best on day one, and it's all down. I guess they're kind of like humans in that sense.
Yeah.
It's all downhill, after they are. But
As soon as you're born, you're dying. That kind of.
but with artificial intelligence, it has the chance to get better, and with the right kind of sensing, where it can kind of observe what its product is.
Yeah.
It can monitor things, and that's people aren't all downhill. I'm joking. So we learn, and we get better, and we adapt. And at the intersection of artificial intelligence and robotics, you have machines that can do a little of that. They're not anywhere near as adaptive as a human being, but they have the ability to adapt and learn and get better at the job that we assign them, without being so incredibly high maintenance. You don't have to program it on a keyboard to change the way it's working. It will be able to monitor itself and improve on things without being so pedantic that you have to do it all for it.
That's impressive. With the labor shortage we've been dealing with for the last, I guess, 2 years now, is there a role for AI and robotics in possibly solving or dealing with that?
Absolutely, and I think it's a really important moment. So I may go off on a slight tangent here about I'm an American. I'm a proud American, but I gotta say, we Americans, we got a problem with robots and AI. For some reason, compared to other countries, we're really afraid of them, and I think it's because like an autonomous thing just mindlessly doing whatever it's told to do, couldn't be more opposite of an American, right? So I think there's just something about it that we've just kind of got this hang up that we're afraid of robots more than anybody else. And it's kind of held us back. in implementing robotics and AI that it's just maybe we've just seen too many bad sci-fi movies. I
Too
don't
many,
know, but
so many.
yeah, so many. So, but compared to other countries, we've got more of a fear or an attitude about it. But what I'm seeing, so back to your question, we're in a moment where we have major shortages in critical industries. And
Yeah.
so the fear, some irrational fear that robots are going to take your job, technology has always displaced workers. The sewing machine took a lot of jobs, with needle and thread. I mean,
Yeah.
with a sewing machine, you can run circles around someone with a needle and thread, right? So that's just natural. But I think now the fear that you can't hire somebody, that
Yeah.
you put out a one ad and you get nothing.
You go to McDonald's,
And
there's 2 people, 3 people at the one right by us. It's crazy.
yeah, and so this fear that I can't hire.
Yeah.
I think we're at a moment where the fear of going out of business might trump the fear of some dumb movie we saw when we were a kid and we've been frightened by it. I think the fear of going out of business is in our face, right? And
Yeah.
some irrational fear about something else, that's just silly talk when you're trying to talk about your bottom line.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out how to get the job done now with 3 people instead of 4.
Yeah.
Because you can't find the 4th one.
That's right.
And so you've got to figure out how it's not that you're firing the 4th one. They're missing. You've got a 4th chair in the office. There's no one there. So you've got to figure out how 3 people can do the job that 4 people used to do. And it's all about tools and to make them productive. What can you give the 3 people you've got? So maybe they can do the work of 5 people. You might expand your business if you get the right kind of productivity tools.
Yeah.
So it's desperation that I got to figure out how to still deliver for my customers. And I've got a one ad. It's been out there for 3 weeks. I've got nothing. I've got to figure out how I'm going to still be able to, maybe this is the new normal, is I'm just not going to have as many workers as I used to be able to get.
Yeah.
And I've got to come up with the tools that those workers use to be productive and still keep my business in solvency. So, I think we're at that moment, and I'm actually hopeful that the fear of robots taking jobs, that's a dumb idea in a world where we're short so many workers. We're short millions of workers right now in America, and they're the industries that are all looking at robotics and autonomy. So, think about food. So if you want, I can just tell you about a bunch of industries that are thinking through this right now in desperation.
Well, I think about it with fast food, for example. Like a robot can flip burgers and drop fries. A robot could throw things in a bag. There's a variety of roles that.
Well, so let's talk about food. So for the last several years, McDonald's has had a robot that makes coffee, and it doesn't do it by itself, but it's a machine. It looks kind of like a little carousel. And depending on, if you order 1, 2, however many sugars, creams, it puts them in. It puts a little sticker on the side of the cup that's got your order number and the ingredients you requested. And it's like a little assembly line. It's tiny. It's not a big machine.
Yeah.
And the person is still at the front end taking the order, but that might be changing, right?
Yeah.
And then at the last step, a person puts the cover on the coffee and hands it through the window at the drive-through, right? So, but the robot has them all in order. That keeps all the cups of coffee with the right ingredients and the right sizes, and it's like a little mini assembly line doing that. And that's because they couldn't find enough workers, right? So this machine is sorting the coffee orders and queuing them up at the drive-through window. Again, please don't dump that coffee in your lap. It's hot, but the robot will put all the right ingredients in it, and as long as the lid gets put on right, you're gonna be happy with your robot coffee. There are so many other parts of the food chain that are just struggling to hire. So, like grocery stores, totally going to be reinvented. the way food gets to your house, if you order it, why should it sit for 5 days at the grocery store?
It's a
With
good
people
question.
walking by it, maybe the grocery store is not the right way to queue up all the food.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of labor to put it on the shelves in the first place. And, why do you even put it on the shelf? It should just go straight to you. So all the big companies are thinking through how to do that. And the pandemic really accelerated all of those. They went live at most grocery stores with new curbside services, and there are all sorts of new innovations there. And then on the farm, you should see all the robots being built for farm work right now.
Oh, I'll bet.
And the farming communities have struggled to hire people for decades.
Yeah.
And our rural communities have been shedding people that they grow up and then they go to the big city to have a life, and they just
That's
have
my
smaller,
story.
yeah. So imagine 2 people running a farm. That's a really big farm, but they can do it. Again, 1,000 years ago, people farmed exactly the way their dad farmed with the exact same tools, maybe even the same horse, because horses live a long time. So today, the modern farmer is driving a multi-million-dollar robot tractor that's connected to drones and using satellite images. And he's got on his smartphone, he's got an app monitoring the Chinese commodity market. I mean, these guys are tapped in.
They don't want any part of Grandpa's tractor.
Well, they're cool to have, and
but as far as for labor,
oh, no way. It's like a 1964 Mustang. It's good to have in your garage, but you will be working on it all the time to keep that thing running. You'll drive your modern car to the AutoZone to get parts to come back and work on your. It's a hobby. It's not a real. So the modern equipment is just so much better, and the machines that those farmers drive are like spaceships. I mean, they're just amazing what they've got, and they're very impressive. So and in construction, healthcare, transportation, all of these industries are just struggling right now. They all have help wanted signs out. Every single one of those industries has help wanted signs out. They're not able to fill the seats. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out how to build a building with 20 people instead of 30 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the challenge, right? And because you can't hire 30 people.
Yeah.
And so you've got to figure out how to build a building with only 20 people instead of 30 people. And, if you look at how buildings were built 100 years ago, it's already changed. It's just that it's changing fast now.
Yeah.
Right. So the tools that they're going to use are different, and construction sites are dangerous. So there are little technologies like here's your new hard hat. It's a smart hard hat. If you wear this hard hat and you're already trained to wear it, I promise no forklift will run over you at the construction site because it's got a tracker in it. And the fork, you could try and run right at you and the forklift will stop.
Wow.
As long as you're wearing your hard hat. But if you leave the hard hat in the latrine, you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Somebody will run over, the latrine won't. But, you could, no crane will ever lift something over you if you're wearing your smart helmet. Right.
Wow.
And a lot of people get hurt at a construction site, mainly pedestrians, walking around. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're already trained to wear helmets and vests and gloves and boots at a construction site. So at NASA, I was building that equipment for the astronauts. Right. So smart gloves, actuated gloves, smart shoes that can sense and detect load and pressures, exoskeletons, helmets that display data. They're like the opposite of beer goggles. When you put them on, they make you smarter. You can see data. You can look at a machine that's just spewing data on a wireless channel, and you can see the data, like dials and indicators appear virtually in front of the machine. when you take the helmet off, you can't see them, right? Because they aren't
Yeah.
really there. But you put the helmet on, you look at a machine, it'll tell you how it's doing.
Wow. That's
You can
crazy.
just look at it. When you look away, you know, the little virtual dial stays on the machine. And if it's got a problem, you know, it's red. And if it's cool, it's green. You know, that's the kind of technology. So you could just walk through a facility and look for problems, and right on the machines. If a machine's got a problem, you might even see an arrow on the ground leading you to the machine that needs help.
Flashing red lights or something. And
Yeah, but it's all virtual. It's all
Yeah.
virtual, right? You know, you have to wear the helmet to see it, but
Wow.
it guides you right to where we got a problem. And, you know, what a great approach. And again, it's all about productivity. Having to wait till you smell smoke, you know, that's not productive, right? You know, having the data see, hey, this machine's going to have some magic smoke coming out of it in about 10 minutes. Why don't you get there before the problem and figure out what's going on? Why is this machine overheating? And, you know, that's the kind of new AI and human kind of interface and robotics equipment that we're building. We're doing it for NASA, but you can see how that would help here on Earth, right? There are all these industries that could use that tech.
Where do you see the future of AI over the next 10, 20, 50 years? Because, I mean, I assume just like all technology, it tends to ramp up speed as it develops, it starts developing faster in general.
Yeah, I think it's a building kind of pace. It's not a step function.
Yeah.
So like one day, you know, we had the singularity and, you know, the clouds part, and this, it's not one of those kind of
Clone
things.
Wars. Yeah.
No, it's going to be just a steady acceleration of the technology as the pace quickens. And we're already seeing it. You know, I always tell people that the future looks a lot like the present because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
You know, the future starts from now. So, you know, it's going to be a nice continuous thing. Every now and then there's a shocker, you know, with a new breakthrough or something, but it's mainly a steady history of progression up to this point. And there's no reason to believe that's not going to change. It's just going to have a quickening.
Yeah.
And there's something about innovation where you have people adopting things and trying things and communicating with others trying things, and then that tends to accelerate the pace of innovation. If you see the other guy trying something, it gives you an idea, and so you're able to see even people sitting at home wearing their sweatpants in a pandemic can see people all around the world trying things, trying to come up with solutions just from any PC now, and can go get advice and go see how somebody else has already figured out how to solve a problem. And it really is just accelerating our innovation to go solve problems and in business, make our people more productive. And so I tell people, you know, the future looks a lot like the present, you know, just more of it. So, there are a lot of examples of that. You know, I tell people you've seen things around you just become robotically and intelligent, right?
Yeah.
So like the elevator. 100 years ago, an elevator was operated by a guy with a funny uniform, and he just had a switch where he would spark that motor up and down, and he had to manually open the doors because there were no motors for that, right? He was the manual force that opened and closed the doors, and he'd try and stick the landing on each floor, and he got good at it. I mean, he could stick the landing.
Oh yeah.
But today, you know, we don't need an extra person driving the elevator, right? And
That's right.
You know, there are banks of elevators, and elevators have recently gotten even better, where a whole collection of elevators work together, and you tell it what floor you want to go to in a big building.
Yeah.
And it takes you right there. It does not give you a tour of the whole building. It takes you right to floor 14. And what that means is you're not going to breathe the air on floors 1 through 13. You're going to go right to 14. And, you know, it's better for hygiene and lots of other, plus it's quick. You get right to building floor 14.
Yeah.
And so in plain sight, the elevator went from this thing that a guy drove to a collection of robots all working together. So it just kind of became an intelligent robotic system in plain sight. And it's still doing the same thing. It's just moving people up and down in a building. And a gas pump, same thing. You know, when I was a kid, you pulled into a gas station, it rang a bell, a guy in a funny uniform came out, asked you what kind of gas you wanted. You popped the hood, you checked the oil. Imagine having to check the oil on your car every time you fill up or every time you plug it in. Inconceivable today, right?
Yeah.
Now, a 1964 Mustang, yeah, you better keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
But today, a modern car can go so far without checking the oil. And then you don't need a guy in a funny uniform. It checks its own dang oil. It has sensors. And I mean, we complain about all the sensors in a car, but imagine if you had to check the oil every time you filled up or plugged it in. That'd drive you nuts today. I mean, because,
my car, you just do it on the little dash thing. I just hit a button and it shows me a level, and there's not a dipstick.
Right. So, and then at the gas station, they made the gas pump easy enough to use. And for a while, you would still have to go talk to a guy in a booth who was kind of managing all the pumps, and they ran your card. Remember the ka-ching ka-ching machine?
Yeah.
You know, he would take your credit, but now it's all done at the pump. It takes your credit card. It's easy enough that basically anyone can use it. And while you're there, it's trying to sell you something on a little TV, right? But in plain sight, the gas pump became a robot.
That became its own little store. You can get a car wash there. You can. There's all kinds of. I mean, I remember when getting in line when someone pulled out a credit card was like, oh God, here we go. Now we got to wait on them to get the machine out, put the little paper in, and now if you see anything other than a credit card, you roll your eyes.
Right. That's absolutely right. So, you know, these are things that were already in society, and they became robots in plain sight. You know, they just gradually became, smart, hooked up, wired into data systems, easier to use. And if you ever went and used a 1960s gas pump, it would be nostalgic, but you wouldn't want to use it very often.
With the big glass bottle on the top and
and having to go, go in and out of the stores to pay. And it took the time to get gas today is just really short. So it was all about productivity. And so now the person at the gas station is inside selling you a Gatorade, right?
Yeah.
And not running in and out of the building to go check your oil, right? I mean, it totally changed the business, and it happened slowly over, decades, but that's what the future looks like. There are going to be a bunch of these functions that take a lot of people right now. Yeah. And eventually it'll just be one person with a bunch of automated equipment can do the job. And we're at a moment where they can't hire 4 people to work at a gas station. Can you imagine a gas station with 4 people?
No, not anymore.
We couldn't find 4 people to work at a gas station. So It just is inconceivable. And we're at that moment where we've got to figure out how to do these things with the smaller workforce, because the workers are just not there. Yeah. So those businesses that figure out how to run a gas station with one person, that's the challenge. Yeah. How do you do these things that now take a lot of people? You can't hire the people. How are you going to do it? Well, it's with automation and intelligent robotic systems.
Wow. Well, Dr. Ambrose, this has been super interesting and a lot of fun. Where can our listeners find out more information on this and about your team at Alliant Group?
Well, if you Google Alliant, we've got some great talks online that include some suggestions on how businesses can make investments in these kinds of tools. And then with some R&D tax credits, the government will pay you for that. And that's money back in your bottom line. Wow. So the U.S. government is trying to encourage companies to explore and adopt some of these new technologies that we've talked about today, Corey. And with that R&D tax credit, it's a great way to help fund companies making these investments for our nation, make sure that America's on the leading edge. So if you go check out Alliant Group, they understand the R&D tax credit and the other aspects of the tax code that are there to help companies make this transition to be able to perform their jobs with the smaller workforce that we seem to have coming. And I think that's going to be critical to our nation in the next 10 to 15 years. Because all the signs are that the worker shortage we have right now is not just a blip. That this might be the new normal.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Dr. Ambrose, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. This has been really interesting. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Corey.
Make sure to follow Innovation Tech Talks on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and pick up a copy of Innovation Tech today, wherever magazines are sold. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.